I've mentioned before that one of my favorite TV shows growing up was Unsolved Mysteries, and just want to say Robert Stack had like the perfect voice for that show. There's an episode on that show that I can still remember to this day. It was about the military conducting experiments and training on remote viewing or astral projection or something like that. Basically, it was about the military training people to be psychic spies. So they had people who were supposedly involved with this experiment, and they had them on the show, but they had them in the shadows so you couldn't see their face, and they did that whole voice masking thing that made everyone sound like, a kidnapper asking for ransom. I could still recall what this one guy said. He was saying that he was able to leave his body, and not only was he able to see anything he wanted around the world, he could actually travel through time and even feel his surroundings. I remember he was saying something like he traveled to the battlegrounds of one of the world wars and can feel himself crawling through the trenches over mounds of dead bodies, which, if this was possible, why you would travel to a war zone and crawl around dead people instead of being on a sandy beach somewhere, I don't know. But anyway, here's a look at the military's Psychic Spies program. The US government's use of trained psychics for military application has a history dating back at least a few decades. Project Stargate was an umbrella code name for a project funded by the Central Intelligence Agency. It was created in response to intelligence reports that the Soviet Union was engaging in psychic research. Stargate, which was given several code names between 1972 and 1995, employed remote viewing, a technique that uses powers of the mind to view distant scenes and individuals. Started at the Stanford Research Institute in California in 1972, the project, originally called Skinate or Skin by Coordinate, consisted of gifted or talented individuals selected by the research center that would be trained in psychic warfare. A minimum of 65% accuracy was desired, but higher levels supposedly could be reached with training. Russell Targ, Hal Puthoff, and Ingo Swann were the original founders of this once secret program. Their task was to learn to understand psychic abilities and to use these abilities to gather information about the Soviet Union during the Cold War. They found from years of experience that people can quickly learn to do remote viewing and can frequently incorporate this direct knowing of the world, both present and future, into their lives. As the project evolved through the 1970s, it was eventually combined with a pre-existing Army intelligence program called Project Grill Flame in 1979. Operating out of Fort Meade, Maryland, this group consisted of both soldiers and civilians who were considered to be psychically gifted. By 1983, the program expanded to include a set of instructions that in theory would allow anyone to be trained in remote viewing and produce reliable data. By 1984, the project had conducted hundreds of remote viewing experiments. Although the reported level of success of the program varies from source to source, the program allegedly had several successful sessions, including locating a Soviet nuclear testing area in 1974, locating a downed Soviet Tu-95 bomber within several miles of the wreckage in Africa. One of the participants, Special Projects Intelligence Officer Joe McMonigo, said that he left the project after receiving a Legion of Merit award for providing information on 150 targets that could not be located by other means. The remote viewers can often contact, experience, and describe a hidden object or a remote natural or architectural site based on the presence of a cooperative person at the distant location, or given geographical coordinates or some other target which they call an address. Shape, form, and color are described much more reliably than the target's name, function, or other analytical information. In addition to vivid visual imagery, viewers sometimes described associated feelings, sounds, smells, and even electrical or magnetic fields. Blueprint accuracy has occasionally been achieved in these double-blind experiments, and reliability in a series can be as high as 80%. The project continued until the mid-1990s, at which time it suffered from a series of infrastructural flaws that led to its evaluation by the American Institute of Research in 1995. After both positive and negative assessments, the Institute ultimately recommended the project's termination. The Stargate remote viewing program files are currently available declassified and stored at the National Archives and Records Administration. You know, metaphysical and psychic phenomena have long existed on the fringes of conventional science and academia. Things like ESP, clairvoyance, telekinesis, astral traveling, these things have all been relegated to the backseat of mainstream accepted belief systems, in spite of extensive mention of these practices throughout the ages and across different cultures. Fact is, the human mind is capable of so much more than just controlling our basic motor functions and speech. It is believed in many cultures that humans originally all had these so-called powers, such as telekinesis or remote viewing. But as mankind progressed, these innate abilities were clouded and eventually covered up. For example, there's 4 great doctors in Chinese history, and supposedly the reason these doctors were so great was because they could actually see inside a person's body and see exactly what was wrong with them. Imagine if you had the ability to send your mind to anywhere in the world throughout any point in history or the future. If I could do that, that'd be a lot of fun. I would just do a live video chat with you guys, and you guys can just like ask me questions about any conspiracy theory ever. It'd be like, hey Mike, who built Stonehenge? Give me a second. Yup, baby giants. But this topic is really interesting for me because I do really believe that our mind is capable of so much more than what it is doing right now. Alright guys, let me know if you were capable of remote viewing and your mind could go to any point in the past and the future, where would you go? Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. See you later.